Good morning, and welcome to my little show. Welcome back. So glad to have you here. I almost did not broadcast this morning. And I still might. I could abort, and this could all be a distant memory. But for now, we're up, we're running, we're recording. We're going to do our oral meditation for the world. My oral meditation for the world. So what are we talking about? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I as a human being? Who am I as an individual human being? Who am I as collective humanity? You know? Because humanity is pedagogically moving its way through time. And we are that too. We are learning. We're learning about ourselves, and we're learning about the world around us, and we're getting really good. And in some ways, we've really got it. We really got it. But this one thing has been tricky for us to figure out, because it's hard to turn the equipment around so that you are looking at yourself. It's really hard to do that. And so it's the last frontier. Who am I? We got the rest of the world. Well, do we have it down really? No, we don't. And that's what I want to talk about, because I don't just want to just wax philosophical and talk about... We're not just talking philosophy. We're talking physics. Physics. I can see this. My imagination, it lights me up when I see the general shape of the physics of the universe. I can see how it's going to make a difference. It's going to make a big difference as to what we're dealing with. Because of what we have to start with. You know, how you play the game makes all the difference depending on what equipment you have been issued, for one thing. And in a mysterious way, you haven't been issued the equipment, you became the equipment. You know, and so there's some credit deep down in the nugget of you that you've got to figure out how to claim, how to disavow all of the negative naysaying that we do to ourselves. We disempower ourselves. We do it to ourselves, and you can undo it to yourself. You can go back and reaffirm yourself. Now, I have a long history of doing this for myself, and so it was easier for me, perhaps, to throw off the yoke of negativity is very, very hard to throw off, depending on how it was laid on. Say if from a very young age you were raised by negative parents, it can be very hard to undo that, to see past that. But there is a you that is bigger and beyond the physical you that you can imagine. You are even more than that. And it's almost not mysterious. It's just a frame of consciousness so that you can, where you can see that you are more than that. So who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What am I made of? What's the meaning of my life? What's the meaning of our lives? What is the meaning of our lives? Are we here to suffer? Or are we here for joy? Are we powerful creators? Or are we helpless victims? Victims of our government, or victims of our circumstance, or victims of anything? Are we? What are we? And you know, the secret of it has to do with just going in and thinking about it. Following the... How do you identify? Where's the identity muscle going? Where's the identity plug going? It's more like a plug. And it's where you lay your I am. And there's an understood one, whether or not there's Whether you're overtly aware of plugging it in somewhere, you are plugging it in somewhere. That's what I mean to say. So go figure out where you've plugged it into. Because if you've plugged your I am into the world of form in a particular way, the result is that you end up feeling frightened, uncertain, fearful mostly. Fearful. It's a frightening place to put your plug, because who you are in the who am I, in the I am fill in the blank, in the I am that I am. It's why philosophy talks about that as such a mysterious, such an important thing. This I am. The I am aspect of you is right where your God force is. It's right where your God identity is. It's right where your source self is. It's right at the center of the vortex of your source. So it's the center of the original spin, the one we all share, the one that's all, there's the I am is a very important thing, and your identity, your personal identity, is cosmically, sacredly, what more words can I use with an ly at the end? Really important. And it's actually at the hub of the place where you stand when you collect all yourself together. Now, it isn't that the angry parts, I've been saying this for a long time, that the angry parts, the negative you isn't you. And in a way, I stand by that. The true you that you really are, it isn't part of that. It might be part of who you are being in this moment, though. And so in that sense, you got to own it, in the sense that you've got to stop doing. You're the one who is allowing the demon to drive your vehicle. And so you're the only one who can stop that from happening. So in that sense, you got to own it. You do own it. You are allowing it at the least. Allowing the negative self to drive your personal human being vehicle, your HBV. You have allowed that to happen. And so you're responsible, but in a cosmic way, in a true who you really, really, truly are. You are not being who you really are when you act like that. Now, what I was going to say about that is, when you act from a negative emotion or from any other emotion other than joy, it's just a piece of you. It's you, but it's not the whole you. And if it's not the whole you, then it isn't accurate you. The whole you includes your inner being. And somehow your angry self has gone off on its own without guidance from the inner being. Don't be mad at yourself for being mad. That compounds it. And actually, frankly, the equipment is designed to go into the negative. And it is somewhat of an accurate response in a way, in a small way, not broad-based way, very localized, reading on conditions, wanted and unwanted. I mean, that your little self doing its little angry thing is correctly identifying something. Let's just give it that. Now, you might be making way too big a deal out of it. And in your reaction to your negative reaction, you might be making it bigger and bigger and bigger, when it really is just, saw something you didn't like, had a reaction to it. But now, so I remember yesterday I started to say something. I'm not sure I fully described this moment that I had when I had a deep realization that the person of joy, this full person, looking at the whole world, having access to all of my flaws and faults and all of an understanding of my what is the word? It's flaws and failings, but I think there's a collective word for it that sounded more poetic. I had a recognition of all of that, but I could see that who I really was this bigger conscious self that was happy. This person is happy. My real self is my happy self. The other ones are just pieces of me. They're not my whole self. I think that's what I understood on that sunny Sunday afternoon. Bob was playing golf, and it was winter time. I had coat on, and I was sitting in the sun over on the bales of straw against the side of the wall, catching the noon or noonish sun. And I just had such a sense of well-being come over me. And I realized what the deal was. I'm like, oh, hello, me. This is always me. And what I have agreed to come into in this density is a place where parts of myself can be hidden from myself at times. And I'm stretched out all over the landscape, having a hard time identifying with which part is me and which part is landscape. It's the baby in the bathwater thing that I keep referring to. You know, don't throw out the whole thing. Be selective. There's baby in that bathwater. Learn to throw out the bathwater and identify the baby all around you. There is baby all around you. And there is bathwater all around you. And in a way, the whole thing, well, not the whole thing, but the bathwater part is, I don't know. I have to be careful what I'm describing because I'm going in to describe something that my words have not brought the audience into a common recognition of. And so I'm going to have a hard time describing something that you don't know what I'm describing. And it's all kind of ethereal and esoteric anyway, right? Let's just go back to our work. Who am I? Who am I? And structurally, we want to be accurate with our conception, and we're talking in a way in this hour and a half that we've got left or so. I want everyone to understand the tone. The room is non-resistant thought. We're just spitballing here. We're just spitballing. Because actually the truth of the situation is, as I stand, I'm a bit of a hermit. I sit in my space. This is my oral meditation. And actually, I am feeling the power of this exercise I do every day. And I do it orally. And now I do it publicly. I did it orally for a while on my own for a few months and recorded it to something that no one is ever going to listen to anyway, but I had to feel like I was recording it. And then I upgraded to Audacity, and now I've upgraded to OBS, and now I've put it out on a YouTube station with Pixabay pictures behind it so that and I have a limited number of slides that I can refer to. And as I do this, I gain confidence. I gain confidence in the material is what I gain confidence in. And I gain confidence in my ability to navigate the material. And I gain confidence in the collective communicative interest that might be in this direction. And I feel maybe there is worth in what I do. Ooh. And I build and I build and I build. And since I do it publicly, I have at least somebody that's watching most of the time. I have a few that appear to have 0 watches, but even some of those, you go in and look at them and they have a thumbs up, you know. So I don't know. Do I have a cheerleader? I don't know. It doesn't matter. This will be timeless at some point because I'm barely speaking of what's going on in my current events as I speak. So in a way, it's going to have to be timeless, because what time am I even talking about? Actually, what's going on right now is we're getting ready. We're coming up on an election. It's September 2nd, I think. So we have a couple months. And I think that a lot of people out there are losing their minds. There have been times when I have lived my life in such a way where I felt it was important to go out there and lose my mind with them for a minute, just to be part of the group, make myself feel one with my people. But I recognize now that to push against things is to create a polarity, and you kind of give power to the other side of the equation. So you got to be careful, or at least I have to be careful from my position. It is very possible to be a positively based politician. Marianne Williamson has proven that. Now there are others on all sides of. I don't want to talk about politics just yet. I just wanted to tag people in. If they ever come across these recordings and it's 10 years from now, what time was she talking about? Well, I'm not really talking about any time. Actually, my discussions are almost completely unconditional. It's talking about who we are beyond the conditions. And now you got to go back and translate the conditions in yourself. But to understand who you are beyond your conditions is to understand how to deal with the conditions, because we're also going to talk about what's producing the conditions mathematically, matter-of-factly. That's the whole point. Well, I want to talk about the nature and structure of reality and who we are beyond the conditions, and this discussion should hold up 100 years from now, I would hope, because I'm really not talking about any specific conditions that anybody's dealing with. Now, at times, I do make oblique references to my own life, mostly, not usually as examples. I haven't gotten into that so much. I'm still all involved in the discussion of the structure of the universe. Have I done that for enough hundreds of hours of yet? I'm not sure. But I'm going to keep at it. Because I can see where law of attraction meets unified physics, and this whole thing, we can lay it down in mathematics, and then you can really, really, really trust it, believe it, know that you are this, know that you can count on this structure as you do the mathematical calculations, trying to decide which way to move. Where do I move my piece on the board? It may come to that. It's kind of come to that for me sometimes. As I have decided, gleefully decided, actually. So there is no sadness in my... I'm actually quite pleased that these meditations are really, really helping me solidify this ability to go in and explore my very esoteric rooms of thought, which I really appreciate. Most of the time, you can't find somebody who will just sit there, not even in a bar, drunk, and you can just blather on. And I have been able to find this blessed thing in these recordings. But, I'm hoping to take it beyond blather. I'm hoping that this non-resistant stream of consciousness, what the girls and I began calling it when they were teenagers, because this is a kind of non-resistant stream of consciousness, just talking about things, just take off from earthly ports and hit the sky and start pulling thoughts together, whatever you can. Because you're flying very fast now. You're going through the ethers really quickly. You're not stuck on the ground, grinding in a one specific thing. You're pulling ideas together. It's like I used to have on a card stuck to the wall of the office. Let's see, what did it say? I can't remember. I think it goes the opposite direction. It goes big people. No. Big people talk about ideas. Something people talk about things. Small people talk about other people. It's the idea I'm trying to match here is the notion that we were flying on ideas. We weren't talking about things, and we weren't talking about people. We weren't talking about other people. Like, oh, did you hear what Sally did to James? And, or how Lindy Lou, was seen with, and I think she really dies, or whatever. It's not, it was just idea, flying on idea. And so we started calling it flying. The first time I remember physically identifying it as that name and doing it for many, many hours, we were heading for a Irish dance fesh. It was either in Pueblo or Colorado. I think it was Colorado Springs. I don't think we did one in Pueblo. It was Colorado Springs. And so it's like a 7-hour drive. And on the way, it was all light because I don't like to travel in the dark. Even back then, I wouldn't have. So anyway, hour upon hour, and you're awake, and the kids are awake, and at one point, one of them was sitting in the front seat. It doesn't matter. We dubbed it flying. That's what it is. It's non-resistant thought. The room of non-resistant thought. And every once in a while you hear Abraham. As a matter of fact, she used to say this quite a bit. The awesome power of non-resistant thought. The awesome pleasure of non-resistant thought. But the awesome power of it. And so the whole idea is the entire discussion that I will have this morning in the Who Am I studio will be non-resistant. We're just allowing the world to be what it is. We're pushing back against no one and nobody and nothing. Now, I personally, in my small specific self, have my preferences to this world. I have things that I prefer. I happen to like peaceful alignment more than I like chaotic momentum. But that's not everybody. Some people, they really like the chaotic momentum, and it's just as well. Because chaotic momentum happens. That's sort of like the shit happens thing. Chaotic momentum happens. Now, I think of my space here, here in this quiet little neck of the world, where I keep control over the gates and boundaries. This is sanctuary here, and you kind of have to go through the gatekeeper, me, to be allowed into sanctuary. First of all, you have to pretty much try to check your negative self at the door. Don't try. Check your negative self at the door, at least at the door of this sanctuary. Because, peace be ye all, peace unto you, peace be unto thee, all ye who enter here, or some such. I'm trying to think of what that would actually have been. Peace unto you, all who enter here. I wanted to get the ye in there, but I'll work on that. I should put it over the door, to caution people. Find your true self. Get into alignment with your inner being, with your true continuum, with who you really are at the place where you connect with all of us, so that I know you are standing in a win-win position. You're trying to find the place where we all come together, where you're your ambitions somehow, your desires, your what would be best for you somehow lines up with what would be best for me too. There is a place, there is a win-win position for us. And so this room is the same way. We are at peace here. We push against nothing. In this place, at least, we recognize that there is no us and them. And we are all in this together, and there's only one of us here, and all that kind of blarney. We recognize that for an hour and a half or 2 hours a day. I recognize it orally, and it's helping me to lay neural pathways that are making me not just believe it, because I believe it. I have believed it, and then as I look around, as I believe it, and then all the gurus are springing out of the woodwork. Have you noticed how many wise teachers there are everywhere? They're all over YouTube. They're all over Gaia. They're all over everywhere. They've got their own websites. They're all over. It's just, if you open your heart, if your heart is pointed that way, and you look around, we live in extraordinary times, an absolutely extraordinary moment. And actually, I believe that this is what was meant by the second coming of Christ. It's Christ consciousness. It's that consciousness of the notion that we are all in this together, and this love aspect of ourself is who we really are. It's where we connect to one another. It's the force that's trying to organize ourselves, trying to organize us as a superorganism, so that we will be sustainable, so that we will be in harmony with the field around us, because it is also in vibrational harmony with the field around. Your inner being doesn't stop at you. That's why it's your bigger self. And the information that's closest to you is getting the most, it has the most churn in your particular toroidal feedback to the field, to the greater toroidal field around you that is also churning this information. But it's instantaneously, in a way, you get the whole thing all the time. And then in a specific way, you get more of your local information churning around you, and then it's all spinning, you're spinning, it's all spinning, it's all very mysterious. But it isn't just philosophically mysterious, because the really interesting part of this is when we understand mathematically and matter-of-factly the design of this structure that we are embedded in. We will be able to plug our technologies directly into the quantum field. It's not impossible. It is absolutely possible. And if you believe the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It, I think that somebody may have already designed something like that. It was taken by the patent office or one of the government offices, somebody with the black trucks and the powerful, all the sci-fi stuff that we have been watching for the longest time is, in a way, added all together. It's everyone's imagination. And everyone's imagination is obliquely looking at certain things in reality that are real. Your imagination is a vibrational download you're getting from your broader perspective, who actually does have some kind of a view of the whole thing. And so, put nonfiction and fiction, throw it all into the room in the same way. And now look at the world again. Now you can still have a little bit of a weight towards what you imagine was reality, but I promise you, reality, fiction and nonfiction blends in a way that is rather unexpected. I my second husband, my second late husband. My first one was my starter husband, the one where I was exploring actually the meaning of the word commitment, and love. And he was a dear man, actually. I have no animosity whatsoever against my first husband. I did him wrong. I hope that he has forgiven me. The second one died. But what was I going to say about my second, the second one? Hold on. Or was I going to say it about my first one? I don't know. I lose track. We're in this space of non-resistant thought. And maybe it wasn't really important anyway. I do believe that... I remember what I was going to say about him. He could not abide fiction. All of the things that he watched were magazine shows, like Dateline and Nightline. He liked to watch streaming feed directly off the satellite, the AP feed off of our satellite dish. Watch it raw. He was absolutely glued to what's his face? O.J. Simpson and the white car chase. And that was right before he died. Interesting. So interesting. But he couldn't watch nonfiction because I don't think he was absolutely whimsical and darling on the one side, and then he had this other side where he was all real. And that he was angry over there too, and he was controlling over there too, and he was sad and confused and abused and all of that kind of stuff. And I could see that in him. I allowed myself to get close enough to this creature who actually turned out to be a really, really nice man, and loved children and wanted to be his darling self, but didn't know how to be it safely in a world that he saw as mixed, I guess. He's not wrong about that. He was very down on himself, though, as many of us are, and especially boys. And he was raised by a raging alcoholic himself who was very abusive to him when he was a little boy. And so he had all kinds of insecurity issues, and he needed to be bolstered. He needed to be soothed and loved and encouraged into the wonderful, darling, beautiful self that he was, and guided gently but not judgmentally away from the darkness that he could be. And then when he was safely away and into his cheerful, loving, kind, I know who I am, joyful self, then we could look back at his previous, what he was identifying with, his flaws, his earlier self, and he would be able to see it more kindly. Oh my gosh, George, I want to run back into you in our non-resistant spaces. I want to find you again and talk to you about things. I really do. In some ways, I wish you were around because he was an electrician. And he would have been very, very into and interested my ideas about power sources. But I believe that it is possible that a device that may have been plugging directly into source, or close enough, actually, you know what? I don't think he was plugging into source. I think the one I'm thinking of was the one that was tuning its frequency into the magnetic field of the earth. And somehow that you could plug your devices into that. I don't know. They talked about one that would plug into source, though, where all of your devices, every one of your devices, would just have a little thing, an interface, a bridge within it, if you will, that the power source would connect you right there. to source, because source is everywhere. What is source? It's the Dirac sea. It's this jiggly, jiggly field of Planck, solid Plancks. It's solid Plancks around you. The whole universe is solid pack Plancks. When they organize into spin, we call it the material world. When they don't organize, when they're just roiling around us, we call that nothing, because our consciousness interprets it as empty space. It's blanking it out. It's filtering it out. It's screening it out, is actually the word that Nassim would probably use to describe the fact that you can't see this roiling sea of energy around you, that when it is not organized but just there and feeding its information across, it's making all of the information cross all the gaps. There is no gaps. Space isn't empty, it's full. And that's the explanation. And also, it's very interesting. The strong force and the weak force and all of that, gravity, it's all coming from the spin. The spin of the matter. When it goes into spin, we call it matter. When it isn't organized into spin, we call it space. So interesting. And the mathematics of this, the mathematics that relates the scales to one another. You can study the dimensions of a universe and come up with the radius of a proton. They relate to one another. It's almost like they're factors of one another. You know, you could see it that way. These integral fractal wholenesses that are black holes. And anyway, it's all very interesting. I believe in this now. I can see the relationship between them. And when Abraham comes forth talking about law of attraction and starts talking about vortices, actually the vortex, and spinning disks of attraction and cooperative components spinning into whatever, I'm like, whoa, I know what you're talking about, girl. We are all spinning. Spin is the motion of the universe. And if you don't want to get car sick, get to the center of the hub. Get to the quiet, peaceful center. Don't be flying around on the outside of the hub. You do that when you go woo with your emotions. When you ride. Actually, I'm not going to talk about it in traditional ways. I will talk about it in my own way. I think that you ride the wheel of karma, whirling, clutching that wheel, your legs flying out, as that wheel spins you around. You do that, you ride that wheel that way when it all has to do with what you do with your negative emotions. When you get them, you are designed to get them. That hit of negative emotion doesn't tell. First of all, it is likely that you are correct. What you are perceiving in the conditional world is something that you do not prefer. And that's fair. You have that. Now, whether or not you have the ability or the right even to bluntly go directly forward and try to, physically change that condition, you may not. You may have to go at it obliquely. Actually, what I was going to say about that is, assume that you don't have control over the condition, but that perhaps you may have influence. Where does your influence come from? Your influence comes from your actions and thoughts and impulses that you follow under the influence of Source. When you are in alignment with your true self. When your two aspects of you, of your binary self, if you're a student of the show, I've been talking about this for a long time, and everybody else has been talking about it too, and I come about this from a pretty Abraham point of view. I have swallowed Abraham, and she is correct, and I would push back against nothing that she says. I actually like a lot of the direction that she comes from. Now, there are some other things that I like about the way Bashar looks at it. Bashar is actually not a non-physical being, but he has become vibrationally savvy enough that he is communicating with other beings across dimensions, so he at least understands that aspect of reality, But he is still living in a physical form, I think. I think Bashar is living in a physical form somewhere. I don't know if that means he's finite, or if the personality of Bashar is secure enough that once he leaves his body, or maybe, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. That would be really interesting to ask Bashar about that. It doesn't matter. He seems to have more of a... Abraham is more really non-conditional. Like not even acknowledging any specific problems that we might have on planet Earth, sort of a thing. She comes at it from we are powerful creators, not we are driving human being vehicles. Because the wisdom that she taps into is only tangentially Esther. It's she taps in. So because of that, she taps into information that I don't know how to tap into. She mathematics, and the fact that she would even know 17 seconds, and the way she described it in the first place 35 years ago, when nobody was, maybe 40 years ago, coming up, I think it was 85, so we're getting close to 40 years. I don't know exactly when she went public with it, but she's been doing this for 35 plus years, and she can tap into information that, like the way she chased those people around Phoenix, and she did it all night long, and she filled her tank up with gas 3 times. Why would she do that? I don't even know if you have that many hours in a night to do that. Maybe she's exaggerating, but I do believe that she chased them around and finally found them. And every place where she would triumphantly thought that they were going to be was a place where they had stopped for a minute. And why they kept moving, I'm not sure. Maybe they were following their inner being too. In any case, she finally found them. I wouldn't have been able to. I refer to stories that there are a lot of people who may listen to this show someday are not aware of. So maybe I'll stop that. Who am I? Who am I? That's what we're talking about. Who am I and what is my design? So you are a binary set. You are a system of 2 beings. One of them is the you that you know, the one encased in your flesh, the one with the brain in your skull, the one with the thoughts that you control or that you have some control of. Some people have a monkey mind and they say, well, you say I have control over my mind and I do not have control because this thought is thinking me. I can't get away from it. I can't escape it. Quit trying to escape anything. There's nothing to escape. We're all fine. First of all, just relax. You're never going to let go of it while you're trying so hard to let go of it anyway. So just relax, and know who you are. You are 2 beings. And that understanding this, maybe quit thinking about, trying to quit thinking about what you're trying to quit thinking about for just a minute and think about this. Think about the nature of who you are. You are 2 beings, and one of them is the you that you know, and the other one is your source self. It's the one connected to the original spin, the one connected to all others, the one who is your inner being, who is your vibrational self, who is connected to the information, the holographic information of all of the universe. You can trust her. And she is relaying information to you, but it's coming to you through frequencies, peaceful frequencies of well-being and all-rightness, okayness. If you are busy on some other frequency, you won't hear her and the wholeness of her message and the wholeness of the information that she's transmitting to you about the wholeness of the whole universe. Just relax, everybody. We are all right. And if we would just relax and be all right, we would be all right a lot quicker. But we seem to crave the drama of it, and the drama is creating a bigger puzzle for us to solve, and the satisfaction of that is going to be very, very mighty when we get there. So I guess that's the whole point. You know, the bigger the problem that we create, then the more satisfying is the solution when we get it. We truly are moving to a world where everyone is tasked and entrusted to follow their own path. And when they start becoming antisocial, we will have ways of redoctrinating them into the brotherhood of man, but we have to have a brotherhood of man for them to be reindoctrinated back into in the first place. And right now, we seem to have a lot of warring factions and competing philosophies and aggrieved and affronted and outraged this and that and the other and whatever. Isn't it tale as old as time? Isn't that what's still going on out there? I have not heard it, settle down just yet. I think it might be, we could settle it down quicker. My theory is if we understood who we were, that would happen a lot quicker. We would settle down and be ourselves. I want to just live in a world where things aren't all that dramatic, where the most exciting thing that happened today is peaches ripened, and my hens laid, a dozen eggs, and some of them are really pretty. And those new pullets, some of them pooped out little egg farts, those little ones that don't have yolks in them when they first start laying. Those are so fun. I want to have my most exciting thing is that I put the bird feeders out this morning and the little bird landed on my finger when I did it. She was so excited about the food I was bringing. I don't need it to be more dramatic than that, but apparently the rest of humanity does need it to be more than that before they get that we are all about the love and the peace and the wholeness and the integral, fractal integral wholeness. And it's based in the mathematical structure of our being. And the mathematical structure of our being is that the two sides of us, so I said we have our the physical side, the one that you know of, and the one that most people completely and fully identify with. This is me, and this is all that is me. But you have another self. The continuum of you is a different self, but she is also part of the meat self that you think of as yourself, right? You have a continuum of you that is vibrational, that is thinking thoughts, that is looking specifically at things, that is vastly interested in all of the world. You have one of those. Abraham is the one who had guided me to being able to look at it in this abstract, matter-of-fact, not not with the juju of religious trappings, but just to see the abstract structure of it. You are these two spinning vortices of attraction, and one is connected to all of everything. and nothing can stand in the way of its vast, expansive, and loving, cooperative, coherent creating of power, cooperative components. Nothing can stand in the way of that force, except you specifically, because you are two selves, and in your physical state, your physical self actually has quite a bit of influence over you on the ground right where you are. And so you have the power to mess up what's coming to you pretty thoroughly. You can mess it up. It's still trying to get to you almost desperately with every fiber of reality, trying to get well-being to you. But if you are focused on, if your channel is, because what you've got to learn about who you are is that you're a transmitter and a receiver. You may not realize you're a transmitter and a receiver. You are a receiver unto the whole universe, and you are receiving the whole universe. And what you put out is what you get back. And don't think of that physically just yet. Take that just to a vibrational level. The universe is vibrational. Quit thinking of it as physical. The physicality of it is totally a secondary condition. So understand the vibrations first, and then you will have way more control over the conditions. The conditions are still the target. Even as you become unconditional, out of the corner of your eye, out of the side of your vision, those conditions are still the target of what you're trying to change. But you can't put them, the conditions cannot be put in the center of the aperture of your focus. The center of your attention cannot be, the center point has to be held by the vibrational eye that you have. The vibration comes first. And the vibration is the spirit. The other thing you call the spirit is emotion. The vibration is the emotion. It's the spirit. It's how it feels. And human beings are not taught to pay so much attention to how you feel. Now, men especially are taught to disregard their feelings and to think only in their heads. Think in your heads, man. Follow Mr. Spock. Actually, I was a great admirer of Mr. Spock, and when I was growing up, I idolized my father. Now, it turned out in later life, my mother turned out to be the rock for me, the one who really was there, on the ground, translating love to me and support to me in all kinds of ways. Not money. She had no money to give, but she had a little tiny cottage, 700 square foot cabin. Had been a vacation cabin, had a loft, that's where my bed was, and one bedroom, and then a little addition that had been added to it, and one little tiny bathroom, a tiny little kitchen, a nice veranda, porch. She gave that to me for 10 years while I raised my children and wrestled with an alcoholic husband. And then... But she didn't have money to give me, but she had, I don't want to lose my original track. I worshiped my father. I was on a bigger thought. See, this is what happens. You get on a big thought, and then if you allow yourself, then you trail into whatever, and then the energy stops and you forget what you were talking about, especially when you're talking about non-resistant things, when you're not really talking about stuff. We're talking about ideas largely. Largely, we are talking about ideas because I know what I have on the ground. I'm actually not as out of touch with reality, with current events as you would think. Now, I quit watching the news because the itty-bitty details of everybody else's lives and troubles that everybody's having, and the murders, the current murders and all that? Do I really need to know all of that in detail? Especially from a vantage point most people have of not knowing who they are and what the point of the whole thing is anyway. It's almost like the news, you could call it, instead of the 11 o'clock news, it's the bad news. The 11 o'clock bad news. Let's scour the world for all of the trouble spots, all of the pain and the suffering, and all of the evils and all of the misalignments. And let's put them all together, and the very big ones, the bloodiest, most horrible ones, will lead the way. Why is this the way? The way. Now, at one point, I wasn't pushing back against that, and I got a recognition that, well, it is a point of misalignment. It is a place where it's just screaming that we do not understand ourselves. And so because of that, it's almost like, it's sort of like the way I see the whole exercise of Hitler and the Nazis and World War II and the Holocaust, and the way that whole scenario played out from beginning to end. And you'd actually have to start that at World War I, because World War II was actually World War I Part 2. It was unfinished churning emotions and business and spirits that still were whatever. But now it stands as a monument. It is so raw. If you go and look at that, there's a really wonderful show that came out this year called, it's something about the Nazis. It's on Netflix. So if you put in Hitler, it would come up. But it's the perspective of it that is so good, because it doesn't over dramatize the horrors of it. It's coming at it from just kind of a matter of fact explanation of how it came to be, sort of an academic perspective, not emotional, more academic. And as such, it really pleases me. I love that academic vantage point, which is basically non-resistant thought. I'm not pushing back against anything. I'm just trying to understand this. And the world was so naive about human nature before that happened. And you might, conclude at the end that what you conclude about human nature is that we're monstrous. Well, without judgment, what it means is that the situation on the ground, what does it mean? What does it mean? I don't think we are monstrous, but it means that the abyss is bottomless. You really need to understand who you are. If we as a people collectively shut out our inner being and believe in an us and them paradigm, the whole system was basically based on negative conclusions. It was like Hitler solidified his negative self, and he locked it in somewhere, drew a line under the whole thing, drew his conclusions, did his calculations from his negative self, and spun it out into whatever, drew his conclusions, and then locked into that. And he started resonating with people. And there's another show all about his inner circle, which describes all the personalities and all of their, and it's weird, the dynamics, the structural dynamics of the way the group was both coherent and chaotic. the way that they were organized in a combative kind of structure where all of them were competing for the attention and approval of Hitler. Because Hitler, as the dictator, had all the control of all of the physical structures all over Germany, all of the power of all of the agencies and all of the ideas to create and organize in whatever ways were all coming from Hitler. And so all of his inner circle, which most of them were the same people who started out in 1923 who tried to overthrow the government violently in the beer hall Putsch to begin with. He didn't end up being the kind of guy who systematically murdered all of his people one at a time. Well, maybe he did. Hitler murdered a lot of people. He murdered all of his rivals, but there was a solid group of inner people that he kept. He didn't murder them off with all of them scheming to take over. They were all very ideologically in love with Hitler. They didn't want to murder Hitler. They didn't want to be Hitler. They wanted Hitler's love and approval and orders to go, build something or create something. There was Goering over there with the Luftwaffe, and there was Speer with all of the architectural, wonders of Germania, or whatever the heck the name of the capital was going to be, and all of those structures. And then there was, Himmler with his final solution work that he was working on, and all of the slave labor that he was in control of, and all of the projects that he wanted to do, creating the Lebensraum for the rest of the German people. And the German people were going along with all of this. A lot of it, they didn't understand the depths of the depravity, but they understood that they were pushing aside Poles that already lived there, to expand to the east. They understood all of that. They intentionally voted on the angry candidate because he was so sure of himself. He was so powerful in his message. He practiced in front of a mirror for hours and hours. He almost did what I'm doing, but different, completely different spirit. And I have no intention of taking over the world. And the paradigm that I believe in is not a zero-sum game, and we have to be in continuous conflict and proving ourselves in order to stay strong, and whatever kind of nonsense BS that he had worked it out there. But basically his problem was that he believed his negative mind, and he spun out thought from a negative mind. And the problem with the negative mind is because your inner being is only positive, by definition, all of the thoughts spun out from the negative mind do not contain God. They are godless thoughts. They are without your inner being. They are without your inner knowing. And the whole of Germany went along with that. Well, not the whole of Germany. He had resistance from the beginning, but then right there you've got a problem, because they're offering resistance, and resistance only gives more energy to the other side. It gives it power. Had we understood who we were, I don't know, in some alternate universe, could we have stood up to Hitler from hey, wait a minute. You will not do this to us. This is not who humanity is, and this is not who you are. You need to snap out of this delusion that you've got, this godless delusion that you've got. You are not bad, you horrible, monstrous people. You are just grossly misaligned and completely misunderstanding of who you really are and what is really the nature of our existence, and where we are in the movie, and what our desires are, what we are about, who we really are in our wholeness, not this horrific negative self that you are in your peaceness. P-I-E-C-E-ness, not P-E-A-C-E-ness. That's different. And they're both made up words, by the way. So who am I? And how is this going to get us to free, clean energy for everyone, everywhere? Because that's what we need to do. We need to get off of fossil fuels. It's poisoning us. It's killing us. I know a lot of people who listen to the show are going to do it for their own reasons. And they may be intellectually interested in how I have put the whole picture together. Because we all have the whole picture. And every one of us, the cool part about each and every one of us is our ability to put that whole picture together in our own authentic way. And so I'm just doing it here from my authentic place and my authentic way. And other people looking at it might find it interesting for whatever reason, whether they're interested in energy, whether they're interested in source energy, whether they're interested in physics, whether they're interested in psychology or philosophy. There's a lot of interesting places where my thesis show, my discussions tangentially touch. So you can come at my show and where I pick one person up, and I start talking the voodoo woo-woo stuff, and some people's eyes light up, and the physicist starts going, oh, wait a minute, maybe this isn't all that great, and vice versa. But the idea is I'm trying to put a whole picture together. And I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. Except for I know that it's having an effect on me. I can feel it. And I also can hear the show getting more coherent. I can feel the energy moving in different ways. And so I'm just going to keep doing it because it's fun and it's interesting. And it's interesting for me, and it hurts no one for me to put this up on the YouTube. And if somebody ever finds it and tries to channel it to other people, I don't know how to reach lots of people, and my primary intention is actually not the reaching of people, although mutually I would like to find my voice and to have other people find my thoughts eventually. But like I was saying earlier, since I mostly don't talk about specific conditions, at least not current ones, I would like to think that my show might turn out to have timeless aspects to it. It might stand up. We'll see. Well, maybe I won't see because I'll be dead. Who am I? Who am I? And what is the meaning of my life? Where did I come from? Why am I here? How can we do better? What's the object of the exercise? What are the primary assumptions that I have about the nature of reality as I address what I believe are the object of the exercise in order to live my physical, best, specific life? Because ultimately, that's what I have to do. I have to go forth and deal with parents and siblings and children and spouses and other people in the community, some of them who have lost their minds. I remember a man that appeared at the post office during the pandemic, out of the woodwork, you might say. And he was clothed. Actually, this wasn't my story. This was the story of a lady that I bowl with. And apparently she ran into trash bag man, clothed practically from head to foot in garbage bags that he had tied on to himself it was nearing the end of the pandemic where people were starting to unmask and people were relaxing a little bit about what had been hard and fast rules. And he was hysterical. Actually, since I wasn't there, I don't have the energy to properly imitate Trash Bag Man. But what I'm saying is they're out there. They're out there. And when you realize that we are all one, and your neighbor is your unknown self made visible, and when you catch a glimpse at some of your neighbors, it's helpful to understand why this is happening, so that you can understand the actual structure that you're embedded in, so that you can have some peace about this. We're okay. It really is okay. Everything is okay. And who we really are is moving to the better and the better and the more and the more. And you're moving with all of the rest of the field. You will never, ever, ever be alone. All of the rest of the field is with you and will always be with you. The only thing that you have in this lifetime, in this body, in this particular kind of being, the human being, you have an extraordinary capability of forgetting who you are. That's basically the ability to forget who you are, at the same time that you have the ability to think overview thoughts with your neocortex mind. Those two abilities together is what creates the darkness that we call the devil, or it creates the chaos. It's a chaotic energy. It's a chaotic, it organizes in a pseudo-coherent way. If you notice, the Third Reich was incredibly organized in a way, and everything done in triplicate. It was all very intentionally organized. It was all of the natural organizational structures of humanity were co-opted and Nazified, is what happened. But it was a kind of negative organizational structure. And for a minute, it worked rather well, as everyone agreed to do as the dictator said. Then, as he said, build the roads. Then the roads got built, and there we got the Autobahn, and we still have the Autobahn. And you might say, ooh, that was very efficient. That was a place where Nazi Germany succeeded. Well, yes and no. But the thing is that the dictator was out of his mind. And the problem is even if the dictator wasn't, even if the dictator was absolutely perfect, if the power structure, if the structure of all of the human beings obeying up the line orders from others, and an outside structure that says this is how we organize, and then you have one person at the top of the ticket, making sure that it's directed properly, even if he's perfect, and we have a Camelot for a minute, we don't live forever. And his son is probably going to be a madman, a Caligula or something. It's always that pattern of power structure doesn't work. And so we're going to have to figure out different power structures. And besides that, with 10 billion people, the organized from the top down and the outside structures of power it's too dangerous. You can't risk having an autocratic dictator get hold of the reins of power when the power structure is that. So we got to have a different one. We're going to have a different one. And as a matter of fact, when we tear this one down, we will build a different one. Now, how are we going to tear this one down? Are we going to do it gently and on purpose and little by little and, flow that direction? I'm kind of hoping it'll be that way. I'm hoping that we won't have incredibly hard lurches. You could think of the pandemic was a kind of a lurch. The wars were definitely large lurches. We don't have to lurch that strongly. And I don't think we will anymore. If you notice, once we collectively joined. And the world wars kind of collectively joined us as a super being reaching across the whole planet. Our media now reaches across the whole planet. Our internet structures reach across the whole planet. Now, from the different nations, they can control the way the internet structure flows. But through things like email and we do have the nervous system of humanity is up and running. We call it the internet. Now, we're fairly free about it here in America. We aren't. It isn't that that certain sites we can't get to. It's that here in commercial USA, the certain commercial sites, especially ones who pay premium prices for their search engine optimization, they get at the top of the list. So if you really want to find something that's obscure or that they would like to hide from us, you have to dig deeper and deeper and deeper onto the pages of Google. Nobody's looking at page 20 of Google, you know? Even if you're there, nobody's looking there. So, I'm digressing. It's because I started talking about current events and our actual situation, the actual state of where we might be in this moment on September the 3rd, I think is what it is. September 3rd. September 3rd, 2024. Who am I? And how does my understanding of my structure help me in this world? Well, first of all, if we do go down in flames, I know where it's coming from. And I'm going to be able to see it coming. And at the very, very least, I'm going to be able to go, man, that is so interesting. That is fascinating. I know that seems like cold comfort. At the most, I believe that it brings you peace day to day. I think that it brings you an ability to function in frequencies of peace within yourself, making yourself a lot easier to live with. So there's a lot of... and if you happen to be in a position of organizational structure of any sort, if you would keep in mind the mantra of the win-win, instead of seeing this as a win-lose game, a win-lose paradigm, you can play it like a win-lose game, and you will start creating what appears to be losers all around us if you do that. But it isn't a win-lose game, it's a win-win game, and if you start playing that game, then you start creating winners everywhere. The people that you cooperate with become winners, you know, as you cooperate with them in the win-win position. Say you're making a transactional deal. Instead of trying to think about how to screw them to the fullest so that you can maximize your profit and minimize their influence or whatever, however you're playing the game, I think that that's what one of our presidential candidates, I think that's the way he sees the world. He sees it as a win-lose game. Of course he does. He speaks that. Listen to him. And he resonates with a whole lot of people out there who also see the world as a win-lose, zero-sum game. He's resonating with them. And that's why he has a chance of winning the election. And what that's going to reflect back to us is who we are. Oh, look at us. Look at how many of us still believe that we live in a win-lose paradigm. Quit playing it that way, people. You're creating losers. Losers out of yourselves. Losers out of your neighbors. Instead, we should all be looking for the win-win-win-win position, the place where most of us, where the highest number of people win the game. And you know what? You don't have to sacrifice yourself in that game. You can always include yourself as one of the winners in the win-win game that you're trying to play. You know, you don't have to go, oh, well, I can make it win-win-win-win for absolutely everybody but me. And so I'll just sacrifice myself right here and do that, and then everyone else will win. Well, no. I've said this before. You don't want to sacrifice yourself for the whole. You want to be yourself, your authentic self for the whole, which most people aren't being their authentic self. And so we haven't even begun to see how magically the world lights up when all of us are being ourselves, when all of us are calling our own path, our own journey, knowing who we are and what the object of the exercise is. The object of the exercise is coherence, sustainability, win-win, abundance, beauty, clarity, efficiency, joy, all of our systems up and working properly, communications, transportation, circulation, distribution, that circulation, distribution, basically the same thing, production, everybody in their corners doing what they feel called to do by Source, who is connected to us all and knows what the win-win position is for us. She's trying to organize us lovingly everywhere, in all kinds of ways. Organize us into bowling leagues and cribbage clubs and senior center help centers. And she's organizing us through government programs and through everybody's right and everybody's wrong. Government is our collective will and could be used to great effect. But also those who don't believe in government know that it has to be spontaneous and felt in the moment by all the individuals involved. But the only way to do that is if we know who we are and understand how our equipment works. We've got to understand where our negative self is coming from and how to take him. How to take your negative self. Don't be dismissive. Don't be unkind. Don't be judgmental about your negative self, because that just amplifies it. Be kind about your negative self. You are designed to do that, to go into your negative self. But you're also designed to understand that it's supposed to be an unpleasant sensation. You're supposed to understand by the nature of the unpleasant sensation that it's like the rumble strip on the side of the highway trying to warn you that you're heading off of the road and into the weeds pretty soon if you don't check yourself. You're supposed to know that you are here for the joy and you're supposed to feel good. You are a good feeling person. If you're not familiar with that feeling, then that's really unfortunate. You aren't very well acquainted with who you really are. If you ever find your way back into a sense of well-being, you'll have a sense of familiarity about it. You'll go, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, this is who I really am, isn't it? That was what that Sunday afternoon was for me, where I got this tremendous sense of continuity in this sense of well-being, as I recognized, those negative selves are just pieces of me that have been thrown off of the wholeness of me, and I'm experiencing just fragments of myself. And so in as much it wasn't that it wasn't me, it's just that it's that's not really me, because me is this wholeness, this other self who is happy, who recognizes her place in the universe. you know? So who am I? Who am I, and how am I ever going to get to how this is going to get us off of fossil fuel? Well, we've been lied to, for one thing, for over 100 years by our government. As it snatched things that was delightful things. The patent office has been a guardian, a place where the very, 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 very coolest of things that could have helped humanity the most are being interrupted and taken off of the market and offline, out of our consciousness. And we should stop that. We should stop that. It's being done in the name of national security, and part of me can understand why. Because the things that I'm talking about, the information that I'm advocating, and the explorations of which will lead us to freedom from fossil fuel and freedom from gravity, when you start thinking about who we are and the ignoramuses that we are and the violent ignoramuses that we are here on planet Earth, now imagine some of those ignoramuses with all of the energy that they need. Now they don't need to tag back into the rest of the world to run their equipment. They don't have to keep getting supplies in from the outside as they build their little dark momentums, their little Wacos that get darker and darker from the inside. And then the next thing you know, you've got North Korea in the center of, West Texas or some such. As you have your do we want Kim Jong-un to have unlimited, clean, free energy? Well, the problem is in the end, there are some truths we're not going to be able to hold back. And so with the understanding of the mathematics of the origin of mass and nature of gravity and all of that will bring us our clean energy future and our freedom from gravity, our ability to reach for the stars, our ability to pull our transportation systems up off the surface of the planet so that we do not any longer need to slather the earth in concrete and asphalt. And actually, we should not be making trillions of dollars of investment in 20th century infrastructure. We should be putting way more money into research and development into this new understanding of physics, and do it publicly, so that when the information, when the ability to, when gravity is conquered and we can plug into source energy, we all have the ability to do that. But now your neighbor's going to be able to take his little auto device, instead of running along the ground, he's going to be able to pull it up off the surface of the planet and fly straight to where he's going himself, and he's going to fly right over your property. What's going to happen to privacy? What's going to happen to... there's all kinds of... You fix one set of problems, you're going to open up a whole new can of worms. And I see that. I can see that. This is our future. This is where our future really is, people. Don't obsess about the dark, cataclysmic, post-apocalyptical hellscape, because that's not it. That's not where we're going. But the problems are still going to be real, absolutely real. As we start getting used to not having fences and no roads there, not being an impingement anymore. People are going to be able to, the poachers are going to be able to fly straight to the last rhino and kill him. That's another reason why we need to know who we are, so that we don't do that. We need to realize that there is only one of us here, and all of these precious, precious, precious biological diversity that we have on planet Earth, we do not want to lose it. the creatures that developed over eons of time in relationship to one another, they are fascinating and beautiful and glorious. And there will be nothing like them again. They'll be like other things, and that will be cool also. And we need to reach for the future. But we cannot. Elephants are so delightful. We do not want to destroy them. Them and their culture can add a lot to our understanding of who we are and how what's possible here on planet Eden that we need to keep. We need to get back to gardening planet Eden from this new 21st century understanding, not from a 20th century bullshit understanding that is way too focused on the conditions that we actually have on the ground right now, to be able to see where we're going in the future. Well, where I want to assume that we're going to is sustainability. Not gasping out, our last noxious breath on a dying planet that we have murdered. I want to see us get through to sustainability. And I know that all of our inner beings are, here. Who am I? Looks like I have just passed the 1.5 hour mark, which means it is fair game for me to close the show at any time if I feel the energy start to lag. So I realize that this show is a special show. I have not once changed the slide to anything else, which means that this has only been audio only with my cabin with the fire. It sort of looks like a fall scene. It also looks a little bit dangerous. Nobody is watching that fire, and if the wind picks up, the woods are going to burn down. We're going to assume that it's been raining, and this wood is over in the wood pile in the wood shed in the back, and that's the only reason why it's burning, because around is just wet, and that forest is not going to burn down. Ridiculous. All right, I'm going to take a really quick break, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to see what kind of energy, where we're going to put this. Are we going to talk more about the mathematics? Are we going to talk more about the physics? Do we want to keep going with the Bashar-based... at one point, what I was going to do with this show, I was going to I had a packaged presentation I wanted to do, thesis statement, and it was going to cover XXX. I was going to try to get it smaller and smaller and tighter until maybe it could be a TED Talk, 18-minute nugget that just went down like a pill, and when it took root inside of you, it would be like that missing piece, that bridge vibration that helped you understand all the rest of it. Everything else that you already knew just kind of clicked into place for you. That's kind of what my initial thought was going to be. And now I don't really know what it's going to be. Then it was going to be like a live show. I was going to do it for a while, not live, and then at some point I was going to go live and allow questions or whatever. We haven't really got to that point. I only really maybe have one regular listener. And occasionally I'll see a couple of watches, and maybe they aren't always the same person. I don't know. But for the most part, I'm still doing this in the room by myself. So fair enough. That's actually not a problem. It just means, as far as I'm concerned, that I need to just keep riffing. I need to keep doing this stream of consciousness for myself, because it's my 2-hour oral meditation every day as I lock these things that I once thought, then believed, and now have come to know. This really is who we are. And I hear really wise people echoing it back to me all the time. I hear it all the time from people that I really respect. And I'm proud to be part of that club. You know, if I resonate with all of my teachers, you know, the Eckhart Tolles and the Gary Zhukovs and the Howard Morrises and the Greg Bradens and the Bruce Liptons and the Joe Dispenzas and the Anita Morjanis and the Abraham Hicks and the Bashars and the Seths and the, you know, along with ancient wisdom traditions and how Nassim Haramein has thrown the math to us now so that we can see this wholeness of this universe, that we are all in it, what's the word? Intricately a part of. You are meant to be here. If you are here, you are part of the sacred pattern that is going on all over. You're part of a very elite and exclusive club just by being here. We really have to give a lot more credit to the human being. We're so easy to disempower, so easy to hobble, incredibly easy. We're so powerful, and our negative mind is such a powerful force. It has the ability, if you turn and zap yourself once in the solar plexus with your negative mind, you can cripple yourself for hours, days. I don't know how long. The problem is that we keep doing it. We're raised by parents who are always telling us no. You know, negative things. Money doesn't grow on trees, and that's not at all possible, and nobody I know can do that, and you better be, you know, you're not everything you think you are, and you're not smart enough to be a doctor. Oh my God. So sorry. So sorry to my sister. I didn't say that. My mother did. We're told these things when we are young, and we just record them. We just record them, and they go up into high up in our operating system, up into our the places where our primary assumptions are, and where we have placed the object of the exercise, what we believe to be true about ourselves. Who am I? You know? Our parents did not teach us probably who we really are, that we are eternal beings. Primarily, we are these eternal continuums of love and light. We are made of light. I believe we probably are made of light. When you add up all the spins everywhere, all the spins, add them up from 0 to the end of it, it probably all adds up to the speed of light. And that's why the speed of light is what it is, because it's all of the spins all added up, because all of us also have the original spin that we're all attached to, and that one is the speed of light. When you add it all up, so I went and looked this up. I looked it up from the Galaxy song that comes from the movie The Meaning of Life. Just remember that you're standing on a planet that's it's that song. Hold on one second. I'll only do the first verse, but it illustrates what I'm talking about. It's just remember that you're standing on a planet that's evolving and revolving at 900 miles an hour. That's orbiting at 19 miles a second, so it's reckoned, a sun that is the source of all our power. The sun and you and me and all the stars that we can see are moving at 1,000,000 miles a day in an outer spiral arm at 400,000 miles an hour in the galaxy we call the Milky Way. That was not perfect. But it goes farther than that, because there is a toroidal motion that the whole universe is likely churning through, because it's a black hole, a wholeness in itself, and moving. Anyway, my theory is that if somehow you had access to being able to add up every single bit of all the motion that we are, all the spin that we are involved in, because every one of those were spins, every one of those are spins, starting with the original spin of the proton at the center of the atom itself. When you add them all up, I believe they probably add up to the speed of light. And what that means is that we are all light. Isn't that interesting? And esoteric, and what the hell am I going to do with that? Well, what are we going to do with that? That is an interesting question. Who am I? Who am I? And what is the meaning of my life? Why am I here? And how, what? Well, I think we're here to organize. To organize blessedly, to organize along source lines. And in order to do that, we got to understand who source is, because we as human beings don't do it naturally. We kind of do it naturally, but we can get knocked off of our game. Our default setting somehow is that if our psyches become damaged in any way, and our psyches turn out to be quite fragile, we have a tendency to lock onto the negative side and spin our thought from there. And when you do that, you have a tendency to create demons. You're creating demons on this planet for us all to deal with, because we are a field phenomenon, and what you do affects me, and what I do affects you, and we cannot get away from that, even though I would like to. And so I have withdrawn into my own sanctuary space for just a moment, so I can feel my own stillness, so I can get a grip on the difference between my own cacophony and the one coming from the world outside, so that I can get a grip onto my own stability, so that I can fly in this universe without fear of floods and volcanoes and fires and the catastrophes that happen to, physicality and the loved ones around me as well, because I care about others. And when they are sad, when they are struggling, I feel it as my own struggle. So who am I? And where are we going to go with this? Let's see, let's do a time hack. Hour and 42. So, am I going to do this at all? Now, I have this links list. Now, this particular links list, I'm going to show it to you. This one, white on black, with at the very bottom, there's a new list that I don't say what it's a link to. It's the researchgate.net one at the very, very bottom. That's just a whole bunch of Nassim's articles that he has published on all kinds of wonderful topics. Topics like, I'll go to it. I'll go to that list. Topics like the electron and the holographic mass solution. That's one of them. The unified space memory network from cosmogenesis to consciousness. So what the space memory network is. So you're a broadcaster and a receiver, and it's all frequencies and all of that. But as where the memory of everything, it's almost like, I think of it as the hard drive of the universe. And all things that happen in physicality are recorded on the hard drive of the universe. And where they are recorded is where on the grid they happened. So that means, yes, that murder, the whatever of it is kind of in the house where the murder happened, but that house is not where the house was when the murder happened. We were flying past an area of space-time on the planet so our planet is flying through space. It's spinning, it's flying around the sun is going around the galaxy is flying around the cluster is turning around the universe, and all of that. And so when something happened, we were flying past a place in space-time. That's where it's recorded. And it's recorded forevermore. And when you remember something, you are tagging into that place. Now, if it happened to you, you have a map, like a road map into where that happened. And that's how come you can find the memory of it. But it's recorded out there on the collective space memory network. Anyway, he did a whole paper. The Unified Space Memory Network, from Cosmogenesis to Consciousness. And then that's a big damn statement. Resolving the Vacuum Catastrophe, a generalized holographic approach. The vacuum catastrophe is the disparity in vacuum in vacuum density between the cosmological density, which is 10 to the minus 30, and the quantum density, the density of the Plancks in the proton at the quantum level. That density is 10 to the 93. 10 to the 93 versus 10 to the minus 30. It's a whopping 127 degrees of magnitude. We're not just talking times 127. So what's a degree of magnitude? 10 to the 1 is 10. 10 to the 2 is 100. 10 to the 3 is 1,000. Get it? 10 to the 6 is 1,000,000. 10 to the 9 is 1,000,000,000. 10 to the 12 is 1,000,000,000,000. And then now by the time you get up to 10 to the 93, there's no name for that. It's really big, though. Really, really, really big. 10 with 93 zeros behind it. God only knows what that number is. I call it a gajillion. But anyway, resolving the vacuum catastrophe, and he does it with mathematics. He shows you mathematically what the strong and the weak force and gravity and electromagnetism, what they all are. It's all spin. It's all this Planck field spinning because of a gradient density in the field between the cosmological and the quantum densities. Resolving the vacuum catastrophe. Unified physics and the information network of awareness. This is the feedback system, the feed-forward feedback system of consciousness. And let's see. An analysis is made of the correlation between internal processes of the neurological system, which ostensibly generate the subjective qualia of experiential awareness, and the external environment, which comprises objective phenomenology. We describe a mechanism of vacuum state correlation of quanta in the neurological system with spatially, and then actually there's more to that. That was just the first bit of it, beginning to describe what that was. The unified space, okay. Unified physics and the information network of awareness. Plasma flow. Interaction simulator. Quantum gravity and the holographic mass. Ooh. Addendum. Oh, please don't do that. For just a second, my computer blinked out and then back. All right, looks like I'm at 1 hour and 48. I did change to that links list. The thing about that links list, I'm not going to put it on this video. It's from a couple of shows back, the description. And then originally, for quite a few of my shows, there's a white background links list that doesn't have that last thing with Nassim and his papers. I have, you can go back to any of my old ones and find my main links list. You can also just Google Nassim Haramein. It's fairly easy to find his papers. They're all over the internet. He's not making a secret of the mathematics. It's not like he's waiting at the patent office for them to, agree with him about anything and grant him permission to start acting on anything. And that's the deal. You don't have to push back against anything. Just go, just turn in the direction of where you want to go and just go there. Lesson for us all. So who am I, and what is my conclusions for the day? Well, don't take yourself too seriously. Everything is really working out for us. It really is. We are going to be fine, and you don't really have to worry about it. As a matter of fact, your worry will slow it down. Your enthusiastic, joyful participation in whatever floats your boat will help it along faster. Your faith in the overall system to be benign and beneficent and beneficial and expanding and evolving and inclusive, your faith in all of that will also help it. That's what the people in church are trying to say. Let go and let God. We are in good hands. So that's the thought I'm going to leave you with today. And so until I see you again, probably tomorrow, I commit to nothing, but it is very, very possible. The day my husband feels better is the day we're going to go out and play golf again. Until then, until tomorrow, may the source be with you.